Okay, good. I'm testing if you guys are awake. I'm liking this. See? Yeah. Okay, so I see a lot of familiar faces. First of all, my name is Cindy Bo. Several months ago, when we first started the introduction to commercial sales back in February, right? You guys know me as an escrow officer with Providence Title for 20 years. But I am glad to announce that 2 weeks ago, I had retired from Title 20 years and I transitioned myself into commercial real estate. Officially, right? Because I was like, well, for the last 20 years, my passion has always been about education. I teach a lot of realtors how to build businesses, grow the team, how to invest. Might as well be one myself. So, some of the people that know ask me, how did you feel about your new career changing now, right? And I was like, I'm loving it because now I don't have to ask anyone else permission to do anything except myself and my bank account. So I just want to share with you. But some of you that are new, I have started back in mortgage and lending as a loan officer and processor back in 2000 for about 5 years before I transitioned myself into the title industry for about 20 years. So yes, I started young, not too young anymore. But anyways, so yes, today topic is on office condo. Before we start, I want to share with you the agenda. I will be discussing and explain like what is an office condo, right? The classifications of an office condo, what are the types of an office condo, pros and cons. And then also the important thing is you as an agent, if you represent your client in an office condo transaction, what are the things that you need to know, right? So because again, most of you knows commercial is a different animal. It requires a lot of education, information, and you're dealing with business owners, investors versus homeowners that has a lot of emotional going on, right? Um, so then after that, we'll have our friend again, Brett with Citizens Bank, coming up and share his lending portion of what they're looking for when it comes to an office condo, in order for them to approve the loan, right? And then I'll show you what an office condo look like. It's completely different from the other contracts that you've seen before. And then of course after that, the most important thing is what? Grab lunch, and then I'll take you guys to the site tour, okay? And I'll share details. The site tour that we're doing today is actually building from ground up. I was part of it. I went through the whole construction. It was not fun. It was actually about a year and a half delay because it was starting in the pandemic, during the pandemic. So, the lumber costs, all the issues. Fun, fun, fun. So then I'm going to show you some of the space that are in the middle of construction, not even finished yet, and then also what a finished unit look like. And what are the things that you can help your investors when it comes to office condo, and what are some strategies that you can help investors instead of leasing the space, turn it into owning the own office. Okay, so let's do this first. Registration. Can you please do this QR code real quick for me? And then I'll do the slides deck too, and then we'll start. Yeah. Does it work? Here's a copy of the slide deck that you can download. Q&A. Maybe. There you go. While you do that, let me ask a question. Who's here done an office condo transaction before? None, right? Okay. Well, hopefully after this class, we can start closing some office condo deals. And here's the Q&A, and we'll start. We're good with the QR code for Q&A? I'm a little shorter today without my heels. Is it working? Q&A is not working? Okay, we can go back to the Q&A. You can ask me questions later.
What about can you go back to the other one? I think we're gonna skim this one. The other one is the slide X.
$5. Wait, something went up. It's not $5 foot long anymore. Was it like $10 now? Are we good? Ready? Let's go. All right. Do you like my new logo? Unify with the hands. What is an office condo? Let's find out. An office condo is an office building consists with 2 or more individually owned units. The rest of the property, for example, the parking lot, landscape, and lobby, is owned in common and equally shared by all the condo owners. In other words, condo ownership on an office works the same way it works in a residential condominium setting, and the terms of ownership are outlined in an office condo association bylaws. It offers ownership of a suite and share ownership of the common areas. Okay, so office condo, when you own an office condo unit, very similar to condominiums, right? Residential, when you help your clients purchase a condominium unit, you just own that one unit in the whole complex. You own everything above the surface, so not including the land, okay? So what it means is we call it the common interest, okay? And because it's an office condo, as you know, there's no survey, right? There's no survey for condos. There's, in residential, we call it the homeowner association, which is the HOA. Office condo, because it's commercial, you will usually hear the words POA, Property Owners Association, okay? So in an office condo, for example, the one I'm taking you guys on a tour today, the whole building consists of about 13,000 square feet. In that building, there are 4 office suites. And you can own individually, or you can own it all, okay? But again, so because in that lot, and I'll show you later, in that lot, it has 2 office condo buildings, okay? So when the owner of the site tour purchased this whole building, he owns the most common interest. So that means he has the most say in the property owner association, okay? So a lot of very interesting things. So there are several classifications of office space. When beginning the search of your office space, one of the first things you must decide is how much money you have to spend on real estate. This can impact the area in which your office is located, the age of the building, what kind of amenities the building offers, essentially the class of building you can consider. Okay, so there are 3 classifications of office space: Class A, Class B, Class C. So let's learn what are the differences. Class A, of course, is the best in terms. But what does that mean? Most expensive, right? So the Class A space is comprised of the nicest space in the market. Class A buildings are generally either new developments or properties that have had significant improvements and renovations in recent years. So like the one that we're going to take a site tour today, because it's brand new, it is considered Class A. Most of the Class A buildings' common areas will have high quality finishes and amenities such as covered parking, fitness centers, leisure areas like putting greens, pool rooms, spa center, and on-site mailing office, restaurants, or cafeterias. Okay? Now, even though the site tour building is considered Class A, does not necessarily mean that it's going to have all of these amenities. Depends on location as well. Okay? The reason it is considered Class A because it is the last piece of land in the city of Richardson that you can have a brand new office building. Okay, and it was brand new. It took about 2-3 years to build and go through the whole city. Fun. That's what I can say. These buildings are also typically conveniently located either in the epicenter of central business districts or along major streets, highways, or transit centers. Downtown skyscrapers and prominent office campuses are typically Class A properties. Because Class A space is the nicest space, it also commands the highest rents. Right? Same thing. Some of the tenants may want a luxury office feel, right? If you go to a 10 stories building downtown and you get a rooftop office, well, I'm pretty sure you know it's very expensive. Okay. And as you may have guessed, so the Class B is in the middle. Okay. It has high quality constructions, but with a less desirable location. You are in real estate, you know it's all about what? Location, location, location. Okay? So as you may have guessed, Class B office buildings are going to be slightly lower than Class A in terms of quality. If you are a company that wants to office in a quality building, but are unable or unwilling to pay high rental rates, then Class B offices may be a great alternative. Okay? So when it comes to commercial, not just the quality itself, but also the location. Because unlike residential, every time it comes to commercial, that's equal to what? Business, right? So location is very important. In the past, last month, we shared about the apartments, multifamily, right? Location is important because, the residents, right, or tenants, it depends on if it's centralized enough for the commute to the work, to schools, etc. But this case is office buildings, so the tenants are going. Bless you. The tenants are going to be professionals, right? FYI, guys, in an office building, no tenants can be in there unless it's medical or professional office. No retails allowed. Okay. If you want to learn more when you take your potential buyers to an office condo for a showing, first thing you want to look at is what? The POA, Property Owners Association documents, because it will tell you in there who can be allowed to get into that office condo, whether as a tenant or as an owner. Okay, because if you don't find out, then you just feel like, well, okay, let's just open a real estate office, but they may not allow that. They may just call it a medical office building. So only something related to medical can be in that subdivision. Does that make sense? So just be careful with those. Okay, a lot of information to learn. So these buildings can be found in major commercial areas, but are more commonly found in the suburbs. Age is a common factor contributing to a building being considered Class B, as they are usually older than their Class A counterparts. Oftentimes, a Class B office building was originally Class A, but has been downgraded due to age and deterioration. These properties typically have good amenities, management companies, and tenants, and can even be brought up to Class A standards with common area renovations and amenity upgrades. Okay, so sometimes you will run into your clients / investors that what they call it, the terminology in commercial is value added. Okay, so instead of for them to spend $10 million to purchase a Class A office condo building, they can pay about maybe $5 or $6 million for a class B or a class C, right? Renovate it a little bit. Let's call it value added, right? Remodeling it, and you can bring it back up to class A. Okay, then you can increase the rent, etc. Okay, so these properties typically have good amenities, management companies, and tenants, and can, oh, I'm sorry, I already had that. Sorry. Rental rates for Class B buildings will typically be lower than Class A because, again, it could be value added properties. The buildings themselves are usually considered average, and the rental rates they draw are average for their markets. So, similar to apartments, right? Whenever you bought a lower class apartment building or complex, your tenants could pay maybe like $2,000 rent, right? Again, you come in, you renovate it, you bump the rental up, right? To maybe 3,000 because now it's considered as what? A luxury apartment, okay? You'd be surprised because a lot of investors, especially those that has been investing for so many years, they always tell you that we would prefer to buy a value added property. Or another term is a little value added property. So like fix and flip, right? They don't want to come in and do the whole renovation again, but maybe just a little things here and there, not too much work, turning around quicker, right? It can still bump up the rent. Okay. So then next and last is a Class C office space, fairly dilapidated and in an unfavorable location. If you're a company that's looking for a functional space with below market rates, or if you are a commercial real estate investor interested in purchasing a redevelopment opportunity, then Class C buildings may be an option. Okay, so there's a lot of different options. Depends on who you're looking for, right? What are the tenants? Who's the market that you want to focus in? Class C properties are typically very dated with minimal amenities and located in less desirable locations. These properties are sometimes slow to lease and occupied by tenants requiring value office space. Class C offices can also appeal to small startup tenants as it allows them to allocate much of their financial resources towards growth while keeping a sufficient roof over their heads. Okay, so those are the three classifications. Again, some questions to ask your client. So Cindy, you're looking for an office condo building. What are you looking for? Are you looking for a income generated property? Are you looking for value added, right? What are your goals? Who are you trying to lease it out? Because most of the time, I may be the tenant myself too, right? And I'll show you at the end why that is one of the pros for owning your own office condo. Any questions before we move on to the types?
Who determines the class? How does that designate who is responsible for that?
The POA.
Okay.
Yes, most of the times the POA, because they're the one that manage all the amenities. So it depends on what it is in there. So like in the new office building that I'm going to share with you guys on the site tour, it's a brand new development. So we know for sure that's a Class A. However, when it was during the construction, they have to make sure. So it was bought by a developer. Okay, so this area is on Plano Road by Arapahoe, if you guys are familiar with it. There's a lot of luxury condos and townhomes, brand new in the city of Richardson. It is in the heart of Richardson, right? Very centralized. So our clients bought it from the developer. The developer was the one that already built that first office condo building. He finished out the whole condos and townhomes complexes already, right? But at the end, during the pandemic, some of the partners want to get out and reinvest into something else. At the time, they were in the middle of another project. Remember Travis from last time, the developer? At the time, he was building that senior living home that I took you guys on a tour last month. Okay, so same one. So because they have multiple projects going on, they want to put it out, they want to sell it. So we brought our clients in. So it was just a piece of land. Okay, it was just a piece of land, and they're actually purchased not an office condo, but it's an office condo building shell, which is a shell building. Okay, so when the POA form in that association subdivision, it is considered as Class A because it's a brand name. So what that means is when our client bought the property, they have to go in and they have to finish out and they have to make sure that all the qualities, all the materials are built level with the same as Class A buildings. Okay, so yes. Okay. Okay, so what are some of the types of office space? Traditional office space is the most conventional way of housing business. This kind of space will have all the customary features that one might expect to find. Typical traditional spaces may include a reception area, private offices, open area for cubicles, conference rooms, break room and or printer room, mail room, etc. Okay, in these types of offices, employees usually work in a cubicle or bullpen style area, and managers, principals, and executives will be in a private built-out offices. This type of layout is often found in law firms, accounting firms, and professional services, real estate offices, mortgage company, etc. Title company. Okay. The next type is called the creative office space. It is growing trend in office environments. Its key identifiers include open floor plans with minimal private offices and no cubicles. Instead, the open areas are full of low-walled workspaces or desks. Design features often include aspects such as open ceilings with exposed ductwork or exposed concrete floors. Collaborative spaces, including conference rooms and group workstations throughout the office. Often creative offices include amenities such as a large kitchen and break rooms, game room, and even lounge area. These areas are meant to encourage collaboration amongst employees and spark creativity. Okay, so this is considered as creative office space. It can be found in all three building classes. It isn't uncommon to find one or two floors of a Class A building to be dedicated to open, creative environments. Also, many investment groups have snatched up affordable Class A buildings, renovated them, and turned out entire buildings of strictly creative offices. They are for business of all shapes and sizes, with this office form becoming more mainstream. The style is not only appealing to tech and advertising companies, but is gaining popularity amongst large corporate companies, including real estate groups, law firms, and financial service providers. As you know, most of the time when you walk into, for example, an insurance office, right, you may not see offices. It's just one open space with a lot of different desks, right? So those are considered more of a creative space, office space. A co-working space, right? So co-working space is office concept that offers rentable office space or desk for small startup companies and entrepreneurs, though many traditional businesses are getting in on a co-working trend as well, with self-employment on the rise. For example, Reaches, WeWork, okay? Now those type of co-working space, they have a mixture of all different types in there, right? They have individual offices, they have conference room, they have all the amenities. Every month that you make a payment and pay them, you can share even the receptionist, sitting up front, greeting your clients, getting your mails. They also have some co-work space, right? So you can get a big office like that conference in the back, and you can have multiple desks in there, okay? The Class A co-work space, usually they already prepare, have all the desks and the furniture there for you, and then you just go in there, and then the agreements will depend on the contract, right? So that's one example. It has a wide variety of benefits. Financially, you avoid the extreme upfront costs normally associated with lease agreements, month to month, right? And then $500, $600, $700, $800 each versus rent a whole office space for like $7,000. So in some, co-working office space promotes a more relaxed office environment that is conducive for companies looking for flexible terms and collaborative, modern working environments. Okay, that's co-working space. And then of course, the executive suites. So the building that we're going to take a tour, it has, remember I shared with you, it has 4 office suites, right? The one up front was leased out to our title company, one of Palestinian title. So we were the tenants, we leased one office out. The next door is the executive suites. So he used that one suite to have a shareable executive suites inside to share the common areas. And then in the back two, he actually merged them together. And now it's going to be open as an adult daycare. Okay, so he combined them together. So that's what it is. So what is executive suites? They're a more traditional version of co-working spaces. Renting an executive suite allows you a lot the same benefits of a co-working space, including smaller lease sizes in desirable areas and term flexibility. These were the original alternatives to working from home or working from a coffee shop, often leased by small law firms and other professional service firms or remote sales team. An executive suite lends a small business the authority of a professional office space as well as the benefits included in such a space, including a receptionist or call system, conference room, so that's a common areas. You're going to have a mailing address, so to say suite 200 hyphen 101, 102, 103, 104, right? Because when you get the mails, the receptionist can distribute out the mails to those individual offices. And when you walked in, each individual office, like for here instance, you can have your own signage outside the door. But when you meet with clients, you can either meet inside your office or you're going to go to the shared conference room. Okay. So usually the receptionist will have a shared calendar. If you need to set up meetings, just let them know. They'll block out the calendar for you and they go on. Okay. So for instance, like some of the executive suites in Austin area, for example, like the Regis and Intelligent Office is considered as executive suites. Okay. But like I mentioned, WeWork, Regis, all the newer modernized office building nowadays, they have a mixture of all these different types inside the same building. And then of course, last but not least is the flex space. So what is a flex space? It's a type of office in which a tenant who occupies industrial space also has office space built out within the building. Okay, so it is still considered an office space, which a lot of us don't even know. Like if you walk into a warehouse, you were just thinking that that's the type of industrial, because that's warehouse. But inside the warehouse could have office space too, right? So as an investor, or you representing your clients may buy an industrial warehouse, but they can also rent those office spaces out to tenants and earn income. Okay. So allows you to build up the style of office spaces that you mainly need, be it traditional space, creative space, or whatever that you want. Having the administrative portion of business close to central operations has its benefits, as executives and managers can oversee day-to-day operations of manufacturing, handling, shipping, research, etc. Okay, so sometimes warehouses are just warehouses, right? They store the products in there. And then they have to rent another space separately and be like a corporate offices, right? Operation managers, accounting, all that stuff. So they came up with this smart idea that let's combine it together. Okay, so they build out a couple of office spaces that they need for the operation inside the warehouse. And then they have a separate entrance, right? You see a lot of those nowadays too. Just like when Daniel and I first started this commercial boot camp, we were like, okay, well, let's just do the class. And then, every year him and his partner, Calvin, would take, agents on the site tours, right? And then we're like, why don't we just do both in one, right? On the same day. So that's how we started out with the whole commercial boot camp for this year. So it can be very creative. But if you understand of this, then you can talk to your clients, investors, and say, hey, let's leverage it, right? Let's leverage it instead of you having multiple locations. But again, at the end of the day is what are they needing? What are their needs? How are they overseeing the operation day to day, right? But sometimes when you give them that idea, they're like, oh my gosh, you're so smart. Okay? So the traditional industrial space will utilize about 95% of the square footage for central business operations, while the remaining 5% is built out for small office space or a reception area. In a flex space, this ratio tends to range between 70% to 75% industrial space to 25% to 30% office space. So it depends on what the needs are. And again, when it comes to commercial spaces like this, whether it's just, an empty building or an office space or warehouse, most of the time you can go in and it's just what is called a shell building. So it's empty, okay? You rent it from the landlord, and then it depends on the agreements. The landlord may give you an incentive, what is called build out or finish out, okay? Or if you don't have money to pay for that, then you can negotiate with the landlord to add it into your monthly rent. But a lot of time is a brand new space, shell building, and you go in and you finish out. It has pros and cons, of course, because first of all, you go through construction, right? But second, the good thing is you get to create whatever the needs of your clients or, whatever the clients are needing and then build out the way it is, right? Just like this building, when we were a title company, we designed that office space as the need of a title company. So basically one side is, we call it the common areas, where you guys can come in, do the closings. We have the training room. You get access to the waiting area, the restroom in the back, right? But then per TDI law, in the operation area, because everything is private and confidential, we have to have a double door with key code or lock, so no one else can get in and grab the files that has clients' social security or etc. Right? And then, like I said, the next space, it was designed for executive suites. So it was just like the restroom in the back in the middle and the reception in the middle up front, the waiting up front, and then both sides are just individual offices. Okay. Then of course in the back for the daycare, they pretty much leave everything open because of creating activities for the elderly people. So just some of the office on the side, and then the rest are just open, so they can maybe put some tables for chess or dancing or all that stuff, right? So it can be very creative. It's very interesting. So what are the pros of buying an office space? Okay. One of the primary advantages of buying office space is the opportunity to build equity, right? Just like when you're helping your clients leasing an apartment. Why should they lease when they can purchase a house and be a homeowner? Because equity buildup, appreciation, right? Same thing as office condo, okay? So if I were you, after this class, you should be hosting a seminar inviting your investors who are in either medical or office professional fields, right? Come and share with them why paying the tenants when you can own your own office unit. Because surprisingly, I'm telling you this surprisingly, a lot of people don't know. They are thinking, oh my God, Cindy, if I have to buy an office condo, I have to buy the whole building, which is like $5, $7, $10 million. That's way too much. But they did not know that they can just buy the individual unit, right? So instead of paying $5, $7 million for the whole building, I can just pay 1.1, 1.2 for just that one office that is perfect for me to run my day-to-day business operation. Okay? Want to know how I do that? We can talk later, right? But I've done that in the past. What I did is I connect with a developer who mainly specialize in office condo building. Okay, so they build all this Class A properties in Grand Prairie, in Richardson, in Garden, Plano, Frisco, wherever. And then they sell individual buildings or they can sell individual units, right? So when I talk to the clients, I said, Alex, you're looking for an office space to open your real estate office, right? Why don't you buy this whole building, use one office space for the real estate, rent it the rest out, right? Because in a building, it could have 2, 3, 4, 5 individual units in there. So those are the pros, okay? Equity buildup, be the owner of it, okay? This could be a valuable asset for your business, providing financial stability and potential future profits, okay? And I'm sure that Brett will share later on, but also in a space, in an office building space, if you occupy 51% or more, we can qualify for SBA loans, Small Business Administration loans. Okay, and there's perks in that too. So he's gonna share his part because I'm not a banker. Okay, tax advantages of owning office space, right? Just like your home, you can get the tax benefits out of it. If you lease, do you get tax deductible out of it? No, the landlord does. Okay, but this one is, as a property owner, you may be eligible for various tax deductions related to mortgage interest, property taxes, and depreciation. These deductions can significantly lower your tax burden and free up funds to reinvest in your business, right? That's good. Tax. Generating passive income from office space ownership. As I mentioned earlier, when you own office space, you also have the opportunity to generate passive income. If you have extra space or not using the entire property, you can lease out the unused portion to other businesses or tenants. This rental income can provide a steady stream of revenue, helping you offset the cost of owning the space and potentially even turning a profit. So having other tenants and businesses in there in the same building and get the rental income out of it, believe it or not, most of that income will actually kind of offset your mortgage and you can make, so basically you have your office for free, okay? So what are some of the cons of buying an office space? You need to understand the capital intensive nature of buying office space. One of the major drawbacks of buying office space is the initial capital investment required because it is a commercial loan, right? It will require more down payment. Depends on the bank requirements. Purchasing a property can be costly and it may require a substantial down payment. Additionally, you need to consider other expenses such as closing costs, property inspections, and potential renovations. Depends on what class, right? A, B, or C. It is essential to carefully evaluate your financial situation and ensure that you have the necessary funds before proceeding with a purchase. Same thing as any properties purchase, who do you need to talk to first? The banker, okay? So they can have like a, it's also called LOI, a summary. They go through the investors' financial information, run through, and then see what the potential is for this kind of purchase, okay? Managing operating expenses as a commercial property owner, right? Same thing. If you go work for someone else or you're going to own your own business, it's going to be operational expenses and time and money involved. So owning office space also comes with ongoing operating expenses that you need to factor into your budget. So not just the rental, the mortgage payment, the taxes and other factors, but also the operation income. Very similar to when they have rental properties, right? They still have to hire property manager. This way is an operation manager. These expenses include property maintenance, repairs, insurance, property management fees, and utilities. It's crucial to have a solid financial plan in place and consider these costs when determining if buying office space is feasible for your business. Okay, so sometimes you work with investors, they may be inexperienced investors, but it could be their first time getting into office condo building. So by knowing all these pros and cons, you can share with them, hey Cindy, this is the first purchase that you're looking to buy on an office condo building. These are some of the factors that I want you to consider, right? Again, being a commercial advisor, you need to provide what? More information. So evaluating your local commercial real estate markets before making the decision to buy office space is vital to evaluate the local commercial real estate market. If you're considering purchase office space in DFW Metroplex, for example, you want to research market trends, vacancy rate, rental prices, and overall economic climate. Okay. So for example, when we did the closing for a client, he was just thinking of, well, I guess I'll just rent the space out for $20 per square foot. And I was like, no, you don't. And of course, he's from out of state, right? So after we did the market analysis, Guess how much we got to rent it out for per square foot? $36. That's a huge chunk, okay? That's a huge chunk. So know the market, do your study, do the research. So what are the condo fees? Do we know what are condo fees, even on residential? What are consistent? The maintenance, right? Common areas, landscaping, insurance, right? Because office condo or condo is what is together, is all connecting units in one building. The insurance covers the whole building, okay? But just like residential condo, you still need to purchase insurance for the inside of it if something happened, right? But okay, so condo fees known as the maintenance fees or common area fees, FYI, is also considered as CAM, CAM. So know that terminology, CAM. You hear a lot of triple nets, right? Triple nets are what? Taxes, insurance, and CAM. Okay? So maintenance common fees or common area fees are regular payments made by individual unit owners in a condominium development to cover shared expenses. And again, it depends on how many square footage you own in that building. Then it will be equivalent to the percentage ownership that you have in that property owner association as well, because you have what is shared common interest, right? So the more space that you own in that building, the more power you have, the more money you're gonna have to spend. Not sure that's a good thing, but okay. So then these fees are collected by the condo association or property management company and are used to maintain, repair, and manage common areas and shared facilities within the commercial condo development. So these are some of the fees. Common area, I just mentioned, CAM. What exactly is CAM? We know it's common area maintenance, right? But it could be the hallways, the lobbies, the elevators, stairways, parking lots, shared restroom facilities, etc. Proper upkeep of these spaces ensures a pleasant environment for all tenants and visitors and enhances the overall property value. What are some of the other fees? Property insurance, as I mentioned. Commercial condo fees often include insurance coverage for common areas and shared facilities. This insurance helps protect the property against unforeseen events like accidents, fire, vandalism, etc., but it's not inside. Okay, so you still need additional insurance protection. Building repairs and upkeep. Condo fees are utilized to fund routine repairs and maintenance of the building's exterior and structural components. This includes roofing, windows, facade, etc. Okay, whole list going on. Landscaping and grounds maintenance. Because it's business, you gotta make sure it looks pretty, no trash is out. Okay, so it's also covered the cost associated with maintaining the exterior landscaping and grounds. This may include lawn care, snow removal, and landscaping enhancements. If you own the most common interest in an office condo building, you actually have a saying of which property management you can use or even if you can form one. Okay, so the more interest ownership that you have in an office condo building, it allows you more power. Okay, you have the most votes. And then the management fees, right? And then of course there's also reserve funds contributions for future repairs. Very similar to the residential condo, right? Very similar. Property taxes. How are property taxes evaluated for office condo? This is very interesting, by the way. Commercial properties tend to create a larger tax bill compared to residential properties by being based on the assessed value of a real estate. Listen to this. Since commercial properties generate income and are worth more than a standard residential home, they tend to have higher tax rates. This is known as income approach. However, it's worth nothing, but because of this, Commercial tax rates will vary from business to business depending on the amount of income they generate. Interesting, right? So not just the real property itself, but it's actually what kind of businesses it is and the value of that business. For example, gas station. For a gas station building, if without the gas, it's not considered a gas station. It's just a standalone building. So every time that there's a gas station transaction involved, it has to include the business of the gas, the inventory, convenience store. You guys know this, right? So most of the time, the business evaluation is actually higher than the real property itself. Okay, on a $6 million gas station sale, maybe 1 million belongs to the real property, the rest of business. So without the businesses, it doesn't mean much. Okay, same thing as other commercial properties. It is valued based on the business income that it generates, if that makes sense. So I get this question asked a lot. Is the tax rate for commercial same as residential? The answer is no. Residential is homeowners. There's no business. Even if it's rental properties, non-homestead properties, there's no the actual business running on a daily operation on there. So the evaluation is not comparable as to the commercial business. Okay. So commercial property taxes rates are applied to a full appraised value, meaning your property is assessed at 100%. The tax is based on what the property would sell for if a buyer or seller seeks the best price known as the market value. Okay, because with residential, you have different types of exemptions you can file, right? So the house could be like $500,000, but because you have homestead exemption, it could give you a cut down by $100,000, right? So now you've just been taxed on $400,000. Well, you're not gonna live in the commercial property, so therefore you have no exemptions whatsoever. Okay, questions? Ready to buy one? Okay. So why do condo fees matter? If the investor, let's say the first time office condo investor is buying a building, right? They do need to know all these fees so they can budget into the financial planning. Okay, because they may not understand. They may just think, oh, well, I'm buying that building, office building, just like a multi-family, like a shopping center. I own the land. No, you don't, right? Because again, first-time investors when it comes to office condo. So you need to give them advice of what are the different aspects, what are the different things that they need to look for. But of course, if you deal with someone as professional who has been buying and selling office condo all the time, then it makes your job so much easier, right? But if it's not, then of course, they need to be budgeting and financial planning, knowing the amount of breakdown of condo fees helps buyers accurately budget for ongoing expenses. Where do you find all this? Property association documents, okay? Assessing value and amenities. Higher condo fees may indicate that the property offers more amenities and services. Evaluating what's included in the fees can help buyers assess whether the expenses align with the value and benefits offered by the commercial condo development. Avoiding surprises. By understanding what's covered in the condo fees, buyers can avoid surprises and unexpected expenses that could impact the financial stability and operation cost. Okay, I will tell you this, most of the time you won't run into this issue unless it's a cash buyer. But if the buyer is getting a loan, like Brett, they will look at all these different fees. They will need to add all these different fees in there, right? So like Brett would say, hey, would you know how much the POA costs per month? And it's actually per square footage, okay? So when the building was built and was bought, before that, it was like 75 cents per square foot. The more occupants come in, the more owners come in, it goes down, right? Because let's say that the whole building owns by 3 people, and because it's like, let's say 10,000 a year, a month, then that means each of you are paying 3,000, 3,300, whatever. But if you have another owner comes in, then it now be maybe 2,500 if you all have equal space within the office condo building. You see? So, so in conclusion, office condo fees plays a vital role in maintaining and managing the shared space and facilities within a commercial property. Understanding what's included in these fees is crucial for buyers to make informed decisions about their investment. And by reviewing the breakdown of office condo fees, businesses can assess the value, amenities, and overall financial responsibilities associated with owning a commercial condo. Okay? Any questions? No questions? You guys are boring. Or I may be too good. I'm just kidding. No questions, right? Okay. So now you know what an office condo is. You know the classifications of the office condo. You know different types of office condos. You know the pros and cons to advise your potential buyers, right? Now what's next? Talk to the bank, right? So of course, again, please help me welcome our friend, Mr. Brett Mariani with Citizens Bank, so he can share with you how he approved office condo loans. The money guy.
Good morning, Cindy. Thank you very much for inviting me over again today to talk to you guys. Be speaking to you about the office space, office condo lending. It's kind of been a big topic in the lending world the last, I would say, 24 to 36 months. Many banks are highly concentrated in their investments in this type of lending. And so there's been a lot of FDIC rule changes on it. So here's some types of office space. We have the owner occupied. This is probably what the banks are going to prefer the most. It comes with the least risk profile. Held for lease space investment. This is going to be someone purchasing it and wanting to rent it out, or if it's a condo, maybe they're going to build it and then sell the condo units for capital gains. And then you have different styles. For us, we really look at kind of two. We have a garden style, which is usually going to be four stories or less, and then your high rises. So why do your potential customers want to look at these types of commercial properties? So typically you're going to have higher rental rates than if you were to have multifamily properties. A lot of times you can negotiate your triple nets or your CAMs. So if you have it fully leased, you really don't have any cost in the property other than your outside insurance. So if you can get it leased, you can actually make some pretty good passive income on the property. You're going to have less tenant turnover, and that's going to equal stability and more predictable cash flow for your investors. If you have it fully leased, less property management needed and time investment. Typically, these are 10, 15-year leases with five-year option periods. So you're not constantly every year looking to refill a vacancy. And then obviously appreciation. You'll have your people leasing from you, basically making the mortgage payment for you. So you're decreasing your debt, and as time goes on, your property's going to be worth more. So then what's the hard part about these deals? Typically higher upfront capital intensive, especially in today's market. We are seeing the prices of properties continue to go up. However, as mentioned earlier, a lot of these leases were 5, 10, 15-year leases. So the income coming from these leases has not caught up with the cost of these properties if your investor wants to buy them. So we're still seeing properties at 5, 6, 7 cap rates, where national prime is 8.5. So instead of 20% down, a lot of times you're seeing customers have to put 40% down to make the deal work. What I usually see is about 35% down to get into a deal right now for office condo, which means we're not doing a lot of them. I'm people would rather keep their capital. So it is more volatile to economic downturns. They can be harder to get leased. You know, there's a pro and con to that. If you have a 10, 15-year, 20-year lease, there's not a lot of people who are ready to commit to that kind of long-term lease as well. So you'll have them for a long time, but if you get a vacancy, it can be harder to refill. It is competitive. Cindy talked about your types of classes, your class A's, the ones that are in good areas, good road frontage. Those are the ones that are going to be the most desirable. And then, as I mentioned, the FDIC has been really keeping an eye on this, and for some reasons that I'll go into during this presentation. So, as I mentioned, this is the one that banks like the best for a multitude of reasons. This is owner-occupied. So, for a commercial space to be considered owner-occupied, the main tenant or the owner has to have 51%. Now, this is gross leasable area. So this is not going to be counted based off of how many units you're in. So if you have 4 units and you're in 3, but you're in less than 51% of the gross leasable area, you're not owner occupied. So some people don't know that and they think, well, I've got 3, I'm good. That's not the case. Now, a business that has the same ownership, so a lot of times you'll see a real estate holding company, and then your operating company, if that is owned by the same people, if that is the exact same percentages, then that is still considered owner occupied, even though the names of the borrowing entities would be different. This is typically seen in smaller office space or the garden style, like I said, for stories or less. So for us, owner occupied underwriting is more relaxed. We get to count the income from the investor themselves, but we also get to count income from any other leases that they may have as well. So if they're in 3 of the 4 and they have income coming in from the 4th lease space, we get to count that as well. Plus, we also get to count any personal income that they would derive as well. This is going to be different from anyone who purchases office space purely to be held as investment. We are really only going to underwrite the property itself. So what does that look like for us? So owner occupied, typically you're going to need less down, less risk for us. So typically 15%. Some scenarios, if it's a brand new building, you can see 10%. If you're going SBA, that's a 504. That would be your 10% down. The bank's going to hold 50% of the note. SBA will hold 40% of the note, and you put 10% in. And that usually comes with better interest rates as well. Now, it is going to require recourse from the owners of the company. Can go up to a 25-year amortization. If you're in SBA, you can go up to 30.
Explain recourse.
Yeah. So recourse means the owner of the company is going to need to personally guarantee the loan. So if the deal goes south, if your company goes under, then the bank, after extinguishing all the assets from the company, is then going to require you personally to pay up for the debt. So we're putting skin in the game. We're investing in you, or your investors. They need to be able to invest in themselves as well. Kind of keeps everybody accountable. Minimum borrower debt service coverage ratio is 1.20. And again, we can use company income, personal income, and any lease income from any additional units. So we're to underwrite this, we're going to get the corporate tax returns, personal tax returns, a personal financial statement that's going to show their net worth, how much capital do they have, what other investments do they have, and then we're going to pull their credit report. Minimum credit score is 650. If you're trying to go SBA and get the really good rates, you really need to be above 720. But you could get into a property with what we would deem just average credit of 650. So we're going to price these things on Wall Street Prime minus typically. Again, because we believe in the banking industry that the risk profile is not as great. So you're going to have less down and better loan pricing. Another reason why we like these is we have to have so much capital for our investments. These loans are not considered against our capital, so banks can actually lend more money than they have, and borrow from the Fed. And there's certain ratios involved with that, but these loans do not count against that. Okay, investment. So this is gonna be either held for, long-term, passive income, lease income, or hold it over time and then sell it through appreciation of, property. So this is fully dependent on the cash flow coming from the subject property. So things you're gonna wanna factor into this if you're looking to invest in this kind of property just solely for an investment. First thing you're gonna wanna look at is the strengths of the tenants. And so the first thing I usually ask is, A, where is the property? Is it maybe shadowed by a Walmart or somewhere that people are constantly gonna be going to that area, a destination? Or how strong are the tenants themselves? Do you have a national tenant like a Dollar General or something like that, who's going to constantly have a corporate guarantee that comes with that you know that company's not gonna fail. Those are considered your strong tenants, or are they mom and pop? Are they just a random person with a small business? Those leases are not going to be as strong because they're going to be more volatile. Next thing you're going to look at is the actual financials of the leases themselves. Are you getting all triple nets? Is it double net? Are you getting double net camps? You know, what are you getting? What's the risk going to be for the investor of, if I have any vacancies, how much money am I going to have to put in this? And then this goes back to what I mentioned earlier with us and how difficult it is to do these loans right now. What are the cap rates? What's the return on your investor's investment? If you're seeing something at, 5, 6, 7 cap, well, you can walk into a bank, depending on the bank and their liquidity position, and get a CD at 5.5%. That's zero risk for you, and you're making 5.5% on your investment of your capital. So why would you go into a property at a 6 cap where you have risk involved and you might have to put in capital if you have vacancies? So the underwriting standards for just purely commercial investment purpose, it's going to be 20% down. Like I said, we're really seeing 35% down to get into the deal, especially in the DFW market. Our market is still very strong, very competitive. So people are still moving. They're still trying to get in here. So there are people still putting that capital down to get in, but not as much as in the past. I would say last year, I probably looked at $50 million in office space requests, and I probably did 15 because of the capital intensive of these. Minimum debt service coverage ratio, this is going to be based on the project itself, is 1.20. So we're going to be collecting all the leases. We're going to be making analysis of all the leases and the strengths of it to make sure that this is a good investment for the bank. New projects, new builds, the banks are going to want to see pre-leases. And typically what we're going to want to see in the pre-leases is does it at least stand alone as at a 1-to-1? Do you have enough leases in place that you can make the loan payment? Even if you don't get anything back, we just at least want to see that so we know we're covered. Usually 20-year amortizations, but a brand new property or something that's been renovated in the last 5 years can get a 25-year amortization. This will require the recourse, which is the personal guarantee of the investors, and that's going to be anybody who has 20% or more of the company. They're going to be required. Now, non-recourse, typically in the past, that would be 35 to 40% down. However, with interest rates the way they are and cash flow the way it is, that this is really kind of a thing of the past until the Fed starts to lower interest rates, which from what we are understanding is probably not going to happen this year. There was a lot of thought that maybe second quarter, you're going to start seeing maybe 0.25, not happening. Don't expect it anytime soon, maybe at the end of the year next year. So, obviously it's an election year, so people want to say things, but if you actually look at Wall Street, the banking industry is not going Like I said, you can get into this with just decent credit, 650. Anyone 20% ownership will have to guarantee. If you're here at my boot camp where we did construction loans, the 75% rule, the sale of condos. If you've built this and you want to sell the condos for capital gains, and then you're going to be out of it, the bank is going to want to be paid off when 75% of your condos have been sold. Meaning the last 25% you would own free and clear, and that would be 100% profit for you. So again, these loan interest rates are going to be based off of prime, typically prime or prime plus, depending on the credit profile, what kind of class is it. Again, this is based purely going to be based off of the property itself. Where is it located? How strong are the tenants? Double that slide. Okay. This is a big one. High rises. And the reason this is big and the FDIC looks at it so much is because the amount of investment it takes. Think of your properties in downtown Dallas, your high rises. Those are extremely expensive projects. Even if it was an older 80s style Class C, you're still probably looking at $30 million, $40 million for a smaller building. So that eats up a lot of bank's capital. So what you'll see here is I've got, this came from Texas A&M Real Estate Center, and going back to what Cindy had mentioned earlier about your investors doing their homework, this is a great source. They will go to CoStar and they will collect all of the data for Dallas, Austin, San Antonio, Houston, and they will compile it for you. And you'll see here, if you can see it, vacancies on Class A, 27% vacancies from the last quarter. That's very high. Regular, almost 22%. Meaning those things are really not going to cash flow. And that's why the FDIC is looking at these so heavily, because this is all stemming from the pandemic. During the pandemic, especially in Austin itself, the high rises were coming up, the pandemic happened, but they had bank loans. So they continued to build the properties. Well, when the properties got built, there was nobody to come back and fill those tenant spaces. And so they're having a hard time. They're having to give preferential leases to get people to even come back in. Now, that being said, down here at the bottom, newer today, trophy office towers in downtown, those are still going to be favorable and attractable to the bank if they have the right investors backing it. Garden style, like I said, these are going to be the ones that are 4 stories and less. These are the ones that the banks like to invest in. These are lower cost, lower risk. Typically, you're going to have more professional tenants, whether it be an Edward Jones or a State Farm, somebody that people are always going to have to come to. They're always going to need those type of businesses. CPAs. These are going to be smaller to mid-sized tenants, like I said, and these tenants have more tight-knit work cultures that benefit from the in-person and customer environment, which helps lessen vacancies. Like I said, it's a destination. You go see your Edward Jones advisor. You go see your CPA a lot of time. If you have tax terms that need to be looked at that are more than just an easy file. And that's it. Do you have any questions or anything I could help you with? Okay, I appreciate your time.
Interest rate
Huh?
to invest on, like how we have the mortgage interest rate for residential, what would be the mortgage?
So it's always going to start
For one unit,
for one unit. If it's going to be for you personally, if it's going to be for owner occupied, you're probably looking in the low 7s. Now, if it's going to be investment, you're holding it as investment, the negotiations are going to start at 8.5. And then depending on how much you're putting down, the credit profile, the risk profile of the subject property itself, You could still get to a prime minus, but sometimes it'll also be prime plus. So 8.5 is going to be typically your starting point on office space. Like I said, because the FDIC's really looking at it because banks all across America are heavily invested in it right now. So it's very volatile, as you saw from 27% vacancy factors. So
One more question, you were talking about the pre-leases before we get into the loan.
yes, yes. So that's going to be on a brand new build. If you want to build something and we would call it that speculative lending, meaning, well, I'm going to build it, and when it's done, they're going to come, and I'll be just fine. In pre-2020, that was okay because they did come. But now, post COVID-19, work from home, that's really not the case anymore. So before we invest in those investors to build that property, to help them build it, we want them to go do their due diligence first, to go out into the community, into that local market, and get pre-leases, meaning, yes, when it's built, we're going to come in 18 months. And that goes back to, we want to see that at a 1-to-1, meaning they can cover, those pre-leases will be able to cover the mortgage payment. Anything else? Okay, I appreciate your time today.
Good. So make sure you is your cell phone number up there?
Yes. It is, yes,
So
sir.
make sure you have that cell phone right there. We do have a little red dot. Oh, and waiting for Cindy to come back, so she's gonna go over some agreements. So if you guys wanted like a 2-minute break, restroom break, water break, there's some water in the coffee. There should be a Keurig in there somewhere. The Keurig's upstairs.
From application to closure, I would say it's really not bad. And yeah, if you're what we do is kind of stick it in there. It's actually yes. Are they showing us the family bank or the bank keeping the house? That would be big. I will tell you this, that's probably, and the reason I'm saying this, I priced the conventional money that's
Yes. Yes. I sent it to you.
Cindy, let me know when is the next picture day, so I
Yeah,
can
I'm
know
working
that
on
my
it.
hair's that kind of.
Thấy hình mới đẹp không?
Hả?
Hình mới đẹp không?
Yeah,
Đúng
very
rồi.
beautiful, I know. Really.
Out there.
But I love the brightness.
Outdoor is nicer. And then em sẽ có cái group picture. Giờ nhóm mình cũng chục đứa rồi đó.
Yeah, I need a good picture.
Daisy's also the more spa stuff. She's more.
Orange day. Orange day.
Right.
My beautiful gentleman.
Cindy, I have a question. So on the leaves, when they, are we able to add, like, are we able to request a copy of your text?
Hey, Paula?
They're charging right now.
Is there water?
Okay. Are they willing to provide that whole text?
Little case. Can you bring?
With the tax and everything, you can still pull up on.
Yes, yes. Yes, on that Dallas tab, whatever county, yes. I try to do that myself, but I'll be. Make sure they know that I know, and they charge right now.
And the leases could be included triple net ones.
I can roast beef or. They know my homework. Actually, at least one before, some chiropractor.
You know, it's very popular nowadays, but just people don't know. You know, they didn't know that they can just buy that one unit.
Yes.
I shared with one of my investors before, and I was like, why are you renting the space for 10 years?
Yes.
I pay for the finish out, you know, every year that you renew, I mean, it increase your rent.
Right.
Put it on one. And she was like, I can just buy one unit? I said, yes, that's why it's called office condo.
Yes.
And she's like, oh.
Because the rent price is $10,000.
Actually, you're making profit.
Yes.
Like we're trying to own a building with just the rent from the first 2 units. I paid off the 2 units. So everything you done in the back, once you open that adult daycare. But again, nowadays, because the interest rate's higher too.
Come back up.
If you send me all your stuff, I can.
All right, you're good.
Yeah.
Waiting for a few more.
So you have a little red thing, so we need to do that. Whatever you see here is on the screen.
Thursday? Now here's the other thing. The best days to walk the race. So the reason being, on Monday, everyone's coming in.
Yeah. Should we all get up and do some exercise? I was killing my feet all the other classes for wearing heels.
Oh, now you never class.
Now Daniel told me, you don't work for anybody anymore. You can wear whatever you want. I said, that's right. Wearing flats.
Remember the story? Because you don't get hired because no like you.
But now I'm like, today I'm actually the one that's gonna take you guys on a tour.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm like,
Maybe you get like 2 different shoes.
oh, I have more than 2 different shoes in my car. More than. My whole trunk was like, you know,
But the summer coming.
a box of all
right?
shoes.
But the heat's gonna destroy it, you know, in the summertime, yeah.
Good morning.
Good evening.
We are good, still awake? Okay. So, The next and last portion of the training today before lunch is called the purchase and sale agreement. As you can see, you don't call it a contract, right? Another short terminology is for PSA. You're gonna hear a lot of PSA. In the commercial world, it's gonna start out with an LI, letter of intent, and then followed by the PSA, okay? Purchase and sale agreement. So all the last classes that you see when I come to show about the contract, you see we can get the contracts from NACCAR or the TAR, right? But this is an office condo contract. So when you work with investors, either sellers or buyers, the attorney will be the one that's preparing this kind of contract. So when I share with you the contract, the sample contract today, you will see it's completely different from the other contracts that you've seen before. Okay, and again, as a developer and builder and owner of an office condo building, especially the one that they develop themselves, they always have to hire an attorney on site to prepare all these documents. Because again, it's not just a PSA, but what are they preparing also? The POA docs, right? The association docs. These are the attorneys that form the association itself, okay? They work with the city for the right zoning, for the right requirements. They form all the documentations for all the owners, right? And that's how they form the association. Similar to the residential subdivisions, right? All the builders that you go through, they have their own contract and also they have their own association, right? Are they going to be the one that, preparing all that docs? Of course not. So there's a specialty attorney that they do the association docs, okay? One of them was like Travis last time. So that's what he does. He developed this land, he worked with his investors, he represented his clients, he prepared the PSA, the LI, all this documentation, he worked with the city, he worked with all the parties involved, and he formed the association, okay? So if you work with your clients, whether it's a home builders or a commercial new development, office condo, right? Always suggest them to work with an attorney, okay? A real estate attorney who specialize in association docs and, all the zoning, etc. It has to be a real estate attorney. There's different types of real estate attorneys, right? But the development in the zoning and the association docs attorneys are something different, okay? So let's look at the contract, the sample contract. This is what it looks like, okay? When the shell building was bought, the contract called office condominium shell, because it's just a shell space. The investor buy the building, so then the build up from ground up, right? And then deliver a shell building. Then the buyer / investor comes in and then start a build out. Getting a construction loan with different draws, and they come in and they build out the way they want it to be. Like the two in the back, they have to merge, so they have to recreate, the drawing, have to resend it to the city and get the permit approved again. Because from 4 units now merge into 3 units, okay? So this is something that you also need to understand is every time the structure inside the office condo building is changed, they need to get a replat, okay? I did a closing several years ago, and there was a lawsuit going on right now between the parties and it was an office condo building in Arlington, okay? It was 4 units similar to this one. The owner merged 2 units together, so now only 3. But he never go to the city and replat it. Okay, the agent who did the contract for us didn't put what units on the contract, on the PSA. He just put the address, which is the whole building, right? So as a title company, we don't physically go there and inspect the property and see how many units it actually is. What we did is we pull up by the names of the owners, okay? So long story short, we closed as 3 units. We closed as 3 units, yes. And then later on, after the closing for like a year or 2, the buyer was like, hey, I got a bill for this other unit. what is going on? Don't you guys do all your due diligence and everything? So then that's when I called the seller and he was like, well, yeah, I merged the 3 and 4 together, but you never replatted, right? So then I called the tax office and the tax office was like, no, it still show as 3. Okay, but because during the transaction, they say 1, 2, 3. So we did not pull the tax on the 4th unit. Okay, so what happened now? All the delinquent taxes are still exist. They bill to the new owner because the new owner own all 4 now, right? So we try to hunt down the seller and he's nowhere in sight. Okay, so then the attorneys have to be involved, the buyer's attorney involved, with our title company's, attorney involved, and we're like, actually, so the agent even got involved because it was not accurate information, right? So that's why you have to be very careful when it comes to commercial contracts or PSA. You don't just put the address, you have to make sure all the legal description is correct, okay? But this is the office condo. So the first contract was the office condominium shell. Now it's already finished and it's gonna resell with a finished product. So that's why it's only office condominium PSA, okay? And this is what it looks like. The attorney prepared it. So it's roughly about 12,828 square feet. Right there. But there's a fire riser room, right? So that's why it adds up to be over 13,000 square feet. It's not livable space, but it is considered part of the office condo building, so still count. And in the shell contract or the PSA, the developers sell based on per square footage. Okay, so the buyer has to pay for the fire riser room too, even though they cannot use it because it is part of it. Okay, so as you can see, there's going to be a lot of exhibit A, B, C, D, and it depends on if it's a finished out office condo or if it's a shell, right? So there's a lot of different things on here. The purchase price is the same thing. Again, you'd be working with the attorney, right? So that's even better. And then of course, the earnest money, the consideration is very similar. Depends on, everything is negotiable, so closing costs, title requirements, how the title work has been delivered to the buyer, very similar. It just looked different, right? All the terms are pretty much the same, whether it's residential or commercial. The basics are there. It just looked different. Okay, and every attorney prepared their PSA differently. Okay, you may have all the terms in there, but it may put in like different places. So just have to skim through the whole PSA. And then of course the financing contingency, right? Sometimes they put the special provision if it's a unfinished product. It will say in there that the buyer can only terminate if the developer failed to deliver the products within a certain days because due to construction, right? So during the pandemic, it was built and it was about close to 2 years delay because of what happened, and then the loan and the funding and all that drag on. And when I take you on a site tour, I will also share with you one of the main issue with the delay of this construction build out is actually because when they do the environmental soil test, remember this, Brett? The environmental, okay? So with the city of Richardson, so do you guys know what the environmental test, the soil test, right? With the city of Richardson in that area, I don't know if you remember because it's been a while. They do the test every 6 inch. So they dig the dirt from the ground up every 6 inch, stop, do the test. And then dig another 6 inch, stop, do the test. Okay. So that test alone, and it is a requirement by the city of Richardson. Okay.
6 feet.
6 feet, I'm sorry, 6 feet, not 6 inches. Yeah, 6 feet. And then you have to go down certain deep in there. So it takes forever for this report to come out. That was one of the main reasons. And then also because of the structural issues and the drawing issues and, I had so much fun during that time. Okay, so but the financing contingency is again, you gotta make sure the bank approve, and they understand the process of it, because again, construction is predictable, right? And it can go on and on and on, so just make sure the contract is good, you know, and whether the client is going through conventional or SBA, like Brett mentioned earlier, it is 51%. Gross square footage, Brett? Gross, yeah, okay. So, yeah, so it's not the number of suites, but it's actually the square footage, okay? 51% or more for it to be qualified as an owner occupier or SBA loan. Okay, and then the closing, again, same thing here. Keep in mind, commercial closings takes longer than residential, okay? Normally residential is 21 days, 30 days, maybe max 45 days for FHA, VA. Commercial, it takes longer, okay? How long depends on the type of property. For this instance is right now, the new contract is a finished product, right? They already checked everything, the buyer and seller know each other, so it's gonna be a quick close, maybe 45, 60 days closing. But if you're talking about the previous contract, it could be 2 years, right? Because it's what? Construction loans. So just be mindful of that. You know, if you're the seller and you're working on a shell building and the buyer put in a contract, say they're closing in 60 days, that's probably not gonna happen. And Brett can confirm that, right? So just, you know all these things that could happen during the process. And then of course, the escrow agent is a title company who's gonna handle the closing. And then the closing documents, the funds, what is it that the seller is supposed to deliver to the buyer? In the beginning, he is supposed to deliver a shell building, so make sure everything is up and running and just do the finish out, right? Now again, it's finished, so now they need to deliver the whole finished product, just like new build home, okay, like spec homes, right?
One is the shell.
In the beginning, so the current owner bought the shell building from the developer, so it was a shell contract, right, or a PSA, and now they're reselling it, so it's a finished product. Okay, so that's why you see it on the first page of the PSA, it just say office condominiums. The first contract was the office condominium shell, okay? And then, let me go back here, I'll point this out again. So right here, if you see the 12,828 square foot office condominium building, the first contract will say office condominium shell. Okay, so that means it's just a shell. And then the initial contract is much longer because then it has all these terms and agreements on the finish out, on how long it takes, if something happens to the construction, etc. I mean, how long and how many times the developer can extend it and then have to deliver, etc. Right? When it comes to construction and you work with developer, the perks are basically the control is actually on the buyer side because they need to provide the building to the buyer at certain time, right? And if the developer failed to do so, because like when you work on the residential with a new build, right? You work with the builders say on this day you're supposed to close, and every day after you don't close, we're gonna fine you $150 a day. This is reverse. If you promise me this, you're gonna deliver on this day, I will give you an additional 30 days to deliver. But if you fail to deliver, then I'm gonna charge you $250 per day that you don't deliver me the building. You see what I mean? Yeah. Right? Because they're waiting for the products. But yeah, it would say shell on there instead. Okay, and then so right here on the possession, this PSA says seller shall deliver possession of the property as of the closing date. Okay, before it would say it would deliver not possession, but is the office condo shell, just a shell, not just a full possession. Possession is of course when the buyer bought the property on the closing funding date, they take the key. They can go ahead and take possession, so they can actually move in, or the tenants can move in on that day. But for the shell, because there's it's just a shell, it's concrete and walls and, structure, then it's gonna have a different language, right? And then, of course, is all the notice, all the negotiation, the termination. So right here, if you look on here on the termination, it say if this agreement is terminated by either party subject in accordance with the terms and conditions provided herein, allowing for grounds of termination, then seller will refund the earnest money deposit. This agreement will be terminated without further obligation of either party. Okay, but if it's unfinished and it has a different language on it. And then most of the time, same thing here, just like residential, when you work with a builder, the earnest money, most of the time, will be deposited what? Directly with the builder and not through the title company. Okay. But this is a finished product, so on this piece of PSA, it says it will deliver to the title company. Okay, so just some scenarios. Breach of contract. Again, so they may terminate this contract, receive earnest money as well as $5,000 in liquidated damages. So you will see this pretty much often on the commercial contracts when one party breaches that you don't normally see on a residential contract, right? And then miscellaneous provisions, etc. So all these are on the residential contract, they have that special provision, right? On this PSA, this kind of attorney prepared this agreements, he put miscellaneous provisions, okay? And then this whole attorney terms here that we don't know. That's why when the seller's attorney prepared the PSA, you need to tell your buyer what? Get an attorney and review this for you, because I'm not your attorney, right? I represent you, but I'm not your attorney. I cannot give you legal advice. So either you read this, or if you have any questions, get with your own attorney. You don't want to give them any legal advice. You're not a CPA, you're not an attorney, okay? So keep yourself out of trouble. And then, as you can see here, so, on residential, buyers, sellers, you have to get them to sign what? A buyer rep or seller's rep, right? Commercial is different. Commercial, you can have them sign, or when the client signs this contract saying how much they're paying your commission, this is your rep right here, right? Because with commercial, they're not gonna, a lot of time you're dealing with sellers that always want what is called an open listing. So basically, whoever can bring them a buyer, they'll pay the commission. They will not sign an exclusive listing agreement with any brokers out there. And whether you're a realtor or you're a broker, in the commercial world, they always use the word broker, okay? Do you have a broker? Have you worked with a broker? And then I was like, you're not a broker, you're a realtor. But then, that's how you are, right? So in any states, when you work with commercial, they be like, you be hearing, hey, I'm the broker for the seller. And then you may look them up and like, just a realtor license, but just terminology, okay? And then, of course, this agreement may be executed in multiple counterparts. Again, when you went to some of my classes in the past, the effective date of the commercial contract is when the title company received the contract, not when the last party signed, like the residential contract. Okay, so because buyers and sellers are investors, doesn't mean they're locally here. They could be overseas, they could be outside of states, right? So it doesn't mean that one party signed today, this evening, or the next day the other party signed. It could take weeks or months. And then remember, because they have their own attorneys, they both have their own attorneys, right? So then the attorneys have to review the contract, and then representing the buyer may counter back and say, well, I don't agree with this, right? And you know how attorney works, it works by the hour. So they could take their sweet time to get back. So just because you prepared a contract doesn't mean you're going to have an executed one the next day, okay? It could take 1 or 2 weeks or even a month for them to get it executed. So just keep that in mind. So when you do the closing date, right, you're not just going to put like closing by this date. You're going to put closing 90 days from this effective date. So whenever they sign, take your time to sign, and then we'll count the day, okay? Yeah, but residential is like that day. Commercial is either a certain date an actual date or a certain amount of days after the effective date. Okay? So that's it. I mean, for the buyer seller, you will usually work with a corporation. In fact, most of the time, 99.9% of the time, you'll be working with an entity, LLC, corporation, et cetera. Hey, lunch is here, perfect timing. Now I can stop talking. No, I'm just kidding. But you'll be dealing with corporation, okay? As an agent, when you're dealing with investors that are corporation or LLC, you gotta need to know who has authority to sign. They may be that one person you're dealing with, but again, they may be 10 members or 10 partners within the corporation. And so if you get into commercial, I always suggest for you to have your own attorney who can also help you review the contracts and all that stuff. Or if you have a good relationship with a title company, an escrow officer who is also an attorney, right? Because they want to earn your business, they will also help you review all that documents. So if I were to work with Kyle, for example, right? I would say, Kyle, you are buying this as Kyle LLC. I need to see your documentation, please, so I can make sure you have the authority to sign on the company's behalf. Because he may sign, but his name may not be anywhere in the company, right? Versus residential, you're dealing with individuals. This, you deal with corporations, LLCs, right? And then just because they own the company, this is funny, but it's not really. Just because they own the company, sometimes per the corporate bylaws or the operating agreements, they don't have authority to sign on behalf of the company, but it's actually the operating manager. See, so these are the things that you need to know and you need to understand. Otherwise, you're having somebody that has no authority to sign whatsoever, signing the PSA for you. And then what happened later on? They got into the discussion, right? Then they're like, why are you accepting a PSA signed by Kyle when I'm the owner of the company and I have the authority to sign? So guess what? Your contract may be terminated. You're wasting all this time. They disagree. Well, he wants to buy this, but I don't. You see? Okay? Any questions? We're all hungry, I guess.
In that case, do we need to reach out to the person who has authority? Do we need to explain what is it?
Of course, so if, let's just say Kyle doesn't have authority to sign, as I would nicely say, hey Kyle, our attorney, after reviewing the corporation documents from you, I'd like to talk to the person that has authority to sign and make decision of the company. So if you would please connect me with your partners, let's have the discussion, together, and then I can send it to that person to sign, right? I mean, what's the point of dealing with someone who has no authority in the company? But it could be the contact person. Like when I deal with a lot of gas station owners, usually they're first generation, right? And so the person that we're dealing with could be the son of the couple, but the company is owned by the parents. The son has nothing to do with it, but he's the one that kind of represents them in a way. And then they sign the contract because they feel like, well, it's my parents, I can just sign on their behalf. But there's such thing as legal documents here in the US, you know what I mean? So yeah, okay. So just make sure that you are talking to the right person. Same thing on residential, it is owned by the LLC or corporation. You just need to make sure that you're talking to the right person. Because there could be a lot of fraudulence going on too. Okay. Any other questions, please? No? Okay.
Smell good.
You're distracted. Just kidding. All right, yes.
I do have a question. If it's a LLC or a corporation,
Uh-huh.
what kind of documents would be different from an individual?
So from my old title hat, right? All title companies or attorneys will need to see a couple things, right? The first is always a certificate of formation. Okay, that is filed with the Texas Comptroller. So with Austin, you can go to the Texas Comptroller website, pull up the name, make sure it's inactive. Okay, because a lot of time it could be franchise tax due, etc., whatever reason. So certificate of formation, and then if it's an LLC, then you need to look at the operating agreements, say who has the authority to sign, operating, their title, etc. For a corporation, you need to see the bylaws. So those are the only thing that's changed between, difference between LLC and corporation. And then the last, of course, is the tax ID, or we also call the EIN. So usually just 3 documents, and then either operating agreement or the bylaws. Did I miss anything, Brett? Yeah, that's it. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Please enjoy your lunch, and then let's go to the site tour, okay, afterwards. Thank you, Daniel, for having all this set up.
It's not all the way done yet, but I'm gonna change the screen because I got the wrong screen.
Check your emails later on for a party here, karaoke.
All right, thank you, Cindy. So we're, redoing the AV setup so we can have live streaming. So today was live stream. So if you missed it or you want to watch it again, it is on YouTube, it is on Facebook, it is on LinkedIn, live stream right away. But more classes to come. Do you have the other schedule?
Yes, industrial warehouse, next month.
Yeah, next month, June 6th, industrial workshop.
So please make sure you signed up.
Let's see. Do you have the whole dates for the other ones?
Not on them.
Okay, that's fine. So next one is June 6th. So invite other people to
I
come.
believe July is mixed use. August is hotel. September is shopping retail. October is museum. November is, October is government agency. November is museum, and December is scientist building, all on UTD campus. Brand new built. They moved the Pro Museum of Asian Arts in Dallas to the UTD campus. These are very exciting. And we have the guest speaker come in. These are actually the project manager who handled the whole, the museum cost about $100 million project. Okay?
There you go.
So it's very great. When they take us on a tour, they'll share with us why they picked some of the Asian arts, the meaning behind it. So the whole tour is gonna be amazing. So I say the best for last. So October, government agency,
Right here.
museum, yep, right here. Government.
So
we
take a
call
picture
it
of that, so
special
at least you have the
purpose.
dates saved. Just make sure you put it in your calendar.
Yeah, special purpose, because there's only 8 types of commercial types. And then, so we did the 7, and then the last 3 are special purpose.
Isn't this great?
Yeah.
So,
Thank you.
all right. Well, food is ready. Hosted by Texas Pho House, Jonathan Doe. He's also a team member of ours. He owns a couple of restaurants. He has some actually for sale. So if you're looking for a pizza shop, he has some of that that he's thinking of offloading as well. So talk to him. He also flips homes. We have a lot of entrepreneurs in our organization, so which is great. I was talking to Kim this morning, sharing about our platform and just sharing how we're bringing people together and just it's different beyond the brokerage side. So if you're interested in just sitting down with us, hearing more what you can add to the table, always great to meet and hear your story too. So all right, go grab lunch, and then Cindy, right now it's what, 11:50. What time do you want to leave from here? Cindy, what time do you want to leave from here? What is the goal?
Let's spend about 30 minutes for lunch.
So we're gonna leave here by 12:30?
Leave here about 12:30.
Okay.
And then I'll see everyone there, so I'll talk to you about 1 o'clock, so we're gonna start the tour.
Okay.
Okay.
I do have cafe tables and chairs outside now. Probably need to wipe them
Nice.
down.
Wanna
So if you
check
want
it
to go
out?
out, check it out, eat out there, you're welcome. I'm gonna turn on the music.
Awesome.
We have a party.
It's really nice.
While you do that, Daniel, while you do that, I said I was gonna go to the site tour, but it's right by my work.
Just come.
It's like a block away.
Eat.
Okay, I'll go. But it'd be okay if I